right, guys, welcome back to Of Stone and Clay. This is episode 86. We are here today with BrieOcea. Thanks so much for joining the show.
Yes, thanks for having me. I have a lot of nerves right now, by the way. So
no, come on. You've been on like a bunch of podcasts
I've
already.
been on a few, but if you hear that through the podcast, ladies and gentlemen, like, I know.
No, I don't see any nerves. I don't hear any nerves. I wanted to kind of briefly tell kind of an introduction for you and why you've been on some podcasts, the story you have. So you lost a child, a 2-year-old child, right, from a drowning accident a few years ago. I actually went back and listened to a few of those episodes, and I actually started crying in one of them. I was driving to go. I was on my way to go golfing with some friends, and I was just listening to the episode, and I was just so touched. I was mostly touched. I mean, anytime you hear a really sad story, it's easy to be moved, but I was just so moved at just your attitude and your bravery to talk about it and to share with people some of your pain and some of your grief. And I think the cool thing is, like, you don't have to lose a child to understand pain and understand grief. Like, everyone goes through such unique pain.
Totally.
That we can all kind of empathize with each other when you go through something really horrible.
And I think with my situation, it's honestly just an extreme example of something that everybody experiences at varying levels or degrees.
Yeah.
So something that I'm really big on and really want to talk more about is giving yourself the freedom to enjoy your life while simultaneously grieving.
Yeah.
And for me, like, I lost my child, and then less than 2 months later, I got pregnant with my next child.
Yeah.
And that was a decision that me and my partner made at the time. And honestly, like, lots of people come to me and they ask me, or they say, I couldn't imagine. Like, I couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
Right? And same for me. Like,
right.
I couldn't imagine. And I couldn't imagine not being a mother anymore.
Yeah.
And so, like, losing my kid and doing my same daily routine, but this time by myself, without him.
Yeah.
Going to the same park every single day by myself, making the same meals for 1 versus 2. Like, I just could not imagine not being a mom anymore. And so after literally like one time trying, we got pregnant.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for that. And I'm so grateful for my baby. But then all of a sudden I'm in a situation where, okay, I just lost my kid who was my whole world.
Yeah.
And I'm in the thick of that grief. And now I'm introducing this new child into this world. Okay. So now I'm feeling guilty about feeling sad, and I'm feeling guilty about feeling happy.
Yeah.
And you can't live like that.
Right. Yeah, you have to be able to, be okay with feeling like multiple conflicting emotions.
Right.
And I think that's totally fine because, like for instance, I remember when my grandma passed away, like, we're all together as a family and we're mourning. The funeral's the next day, but we're like playing games and laughing and stuff because we're trying to live our lives, right?
Right,
and
totally.
we're trying to, and it's still so fresh and raw, and so
you're so sad.
Yeah, and there's still moments when, like, someone says something and you just, you get choked up, and but you can't like cry all day every day.
No.
It's too exhausting, and if you do that, you're just going to go crazy.
Right.
So
and also, I want to say,
go ahead.
When you allow yourself to play, like, you're at the funeral, right, and you're playing games and you're connecting to your family, that's when you can connect to her the most too.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's where she is. She's living on that high vibing place.
Yeah.
So if you're having fun and laughing, like, she's right there laughing with you. And she wants to connect with you in that way.
Yeah. So what was your relationship with God before and after the accident?
Completely transformed.
Yeah.
I I went through my own personal spiritual awakening right after I gave birth to my first, to Romeo.
Were you pretty spiritual before, or?
Yeah, I was. I grew up LDS, and I actually left the church when I was 16.
Yeah.
Went through a super rebellious phase. And having my first child, that kind of brought back the spirituality for me in a whole new way, because it was insane. Like, I just birthed this kid who is my everything, and where did he come from? He didn't just come out of thin air, you know? Like, there's so much more to this life than what you can see, touch, hear, and feel.
Yeah.
So that opened up my eyes in a whole new way, but then losing him, that completely transformed it.
Yeah.
And my relationship with God, with the universe, with the higher power today is very, very in touch or entangled with my relationship with him.
Yeah.
I lost him physically and I gained him spiritually.
Yeah.
And it's this whole new relationship that I have.
Yeah, I feel like without some sort of tether to a divine creator or something, like if you lost a child, like, I don't know, not that you'll ever get over it, period, but I don't know that you could ever like regain sanity if you felt like you would never ever see him again. I
don't know how people do that. Like somebody else going through child loss or any kind of major loss or hard thing. If you don't believe in that higher power having your back, or if you think that they just don't exist anymore, I can't imagine, because it's so much more than do they exist, and they're so much more alive now than they were even before.
Yeah, that's cool.
In this whole new way.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Let's go back to this idea of grieving while also feeling joy.
Yes.
I'm sure that was much harder in the beginning stages of things, because like you said, everything in your brain probably tells you like, I need to be sad, I need to be depressed.
Yes.
I need to feel guilt, I need to feel shame, whatever. And any joy I feel is taking away from that grieving.
Definitely.
Right.
And it's really confusing. And I would say because of the expectations put on people who are grieving or going through something really, really hard, it almost, at least from my personal experience, disconnects that person from their grieving process or from their healing, because it gets really confusing with everybody's judgments and with all of the expectations put on you. And for me, honestly, it got really numb for a little bit, where I, like I said, felt guilty for being happy and felt guilty for being sad. So then where was I left? Just feeling a little bit numb. And then I finally had to realize it's not grieving, then joy.
Right.
It's grief and joy. Grief does not have a destination.
Right. There's no finish line.
There's no finish line in it. It's not like I'm going to get to some healed, magical place and then I can be happy one day.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And even like, I think, like, let's talk breakups for a second. So I think there's a bit of a grieving process in a breakup.
Yes.
Right. But it's not, in some ways it's not as dramatic because the person's still alive. Right.
Right. No,
but
it's not.
in some ways you're like, but this almost feels worse because they're alive, but I can't see them anymore.
Totally.
Or like I shouldn't see them anymore or whatever. And so not to compare the two.
No, I want to compare it. I feel like everybody's going through different layers of this.
Yeah. And I think like I've had breakups where I felt like, oh, this feels like worse than losing someone.
Totally.
Because I not only do I feel the grief of loss, but I feel the grief of like, I lost this person myself because of something I did or whatever, or I'm not good enough or whatever. And so like you said, grief doesn't necessarily have its own destiny.
Right. And with that too, like somebody going through a breakup or a divorce, they might have conflicting emotions of grieving their person, grieving that divorce, but then also the freedom that they that they have in their new life or in their new freedom, right?
Or just wanting to move on, wanting to try to move on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's the conflicting emotions, and I would say it's just so important for you to allow yourself to feel all of it and to express yourself in all of it, and however that shows up for you in that day.
Yeah. So so have you had a breakup since this thing happened? Yeah.
Yes.
How was compare that grief process with the other grief?
Yeah.
I mean, it's apples and oranges, but
yeah.
I feel like I don't know, you're more maybe emotionally prepared because you've been through it.
Right. I mean, breakups are so hard.
They're
and
horrible.
I personally feel like I'm going through a divorce right now. I left the father of my 2 children 6 months ago, and it's hard because we were together for 6 years. Like we created a life together, you know, and I love that you bring that up because I'm hoping to relate to people who not only experience tragedy on an extreme scale, like losing a child, right? But who experience things just really, really hard.
Yeah.
Because breakups are really hard.
They're brutal.
Definitely. And I would say like it comes with the same thing, with the conflicting emotions of, okay, I'm losing this person who was everything to me, right? They're still alive and all of that, but I'm losing this person, and now I'm feeling the freedom of this new life, but then the sadness of my old life. It's like you're grieving your old life.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing in different levels.
Yeah.
Different degrees.
So I wonder if I'd like to hear from you what are maybe the hardest parts of grief. Like for me in a breakup, what's really hard sometimes, especially if you've been with someone for a while, is that everything reminds you of them.
Oh, I know.
You know, like you drive around town and you're like, oh, we ate there.
You're seeing their name everywhere.
Yeah, we drove past here. We listened to this song over here.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure you get that with your son Romeo, because obviously, like, you know, the house you lived in, like every square foot. And then, losing a partner, like that you're with for 6 years.
Right.
There's got to be like your whole life reminds you of him.
Definitely.
Yeah. Do you feel like that's one of the hardest parts? Just being constantly reminded.
So that's something that I think people kind of misinterpret with grief, is they don't really want to bring up my son.
Yeah.
Because they just don't know how to. And I understand that, but I love talking about him.
Right.
And no, I don't necessarily want to get stuck on the accident and all of that. But I love talking about my relationship I have with him today and memories I have of him and all of that. So, I mean, I don't love talking about my ex.
Yeah.
So that's definitely different. But I would say that is an important thing for people to understand about somebody who is grieving. But yeah, I would say there is that difference for sure.
Yeah. When you were first going through it, what was your experience with, like, I'm sure you got bombarded with texts and people hitting you up. And was that overwhelming? Was that comforting? Was it, again, a blend of the two?
Oh, yeah, it was a blend of the two. Something for me is I've always been a person who I feel safe when everybody around me feels safe and good.
Yeah.
And so with this happening to me, I found myself in a position where everybody's there for me, but I still wanted to make sure that they were all okay because this is awful.
Right.
And everybody's hurting. So like I'm the mother who lost my son, but I'm sitting there trying to make sure everybody else is okay. So I'm pretending to be better than I am. I'm telling them it's okay, like I'm okay when I wasn't.
Yeah.
So
but what's the alternative to say, hey, I'm not okay, and just start crying?
But then it's almost like, hey, I'm not okay, but I am okay too. I didn't know how to explain that to people.
Okay.
Like I knew I wasn't okay, but I was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was at the same time, so that people were like, oh, you're so strong, you're so brave, but really, like, I didn't know what the hell was going on.
Yeah, yeah,
I didn't know what was going on.
yeah. That's why when I'm going through something really hard, I know it comes from a good place, but I struggle when people are like, so how are you doing? Because
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a complicated
Everything.
question.
Like, don't worry about me.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'm going to be okay.
I feel like saying, you know what? If you really want to know, like, let's go get dinner and talk about it. Because
I don't want to just brush you off and say,
the state
oh, I'm good.
of how am I doing? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how am I doing spiritually? How am I doing mentally? How am I doing physically?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and yeah, if you split up your day, like, especially when you're grieving or going through something horrible, it's like, it's all over the place.
Yeah.
You know? And you can't, you know, you can't just say like yesterday was bad, because there are little bits of joy and little bits of goodness in it.
Definitely.
You know? But yeah, like you said, it's so hard to balance the joy and the pain.
For sure. And I would say it's so important to free yourself to feel all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And here's a big thing is stop judging people and stop putting expectations on people who are going through something really hard of how they should experience it. Like, I, for one, will never judge somebody who is grieving or going through that really hard thing, because I know what it feels like to have my whole world completely shaken.
Yeah.
And however you respond to that, I give you full grace.
Yeah. How have you done with giving yourself grace?
Oof. That's what I'm working on.
Yeah, yeah.
And how I'm giving myself grace now is letting myself be happy when I want to be happy.
Yeah.
Letting myself fall in love again.
Mm-hmm.
Letting myself enjoy my beautiful daughter.
Yeah.
While at the same time letting myself be so sad that I lost my son.
Yeah.
Like, I can go out to dinner and laugh with my friends and have a couple of drinks, and maybe I'm going to post a picture of me on Instagram having drinks and having fun. But I'm still, like, that doesn't mean I didn't cry myself to sleep later that night.
Yeah.
And I think it's confusing for people because they'll be on Instagram and they'll see somebody grieving, or they'll see me or whatever, like, posting me out at dinner, and they'll be like, oh, she should be in bed.
Yeah.
Well, what is she doing?
She shouldn't be having dinner.
She doesn't even care that she lost her son.
Yeah.
Oh, I care.
Yeah.
But what do you do?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what makes social media tricky, because you're just kind of painting this, this image of your life, but it's just highlights.
Yeah.
And even if, like, I've seen, on your TikTok, you have some videos about your son that are emotional, and they kind of show you grieving, but that's only one part of your life, and you can't only post about that, or maybe you can, but that wouldn't be accurate either.
No, not at all. And here's another thing that people need to know is, so one, stop judging and stop putting expectations on how somebody should grieve, and then two, don't label them for what happened to them.
Right.
There's so much more to their life than what happened to them. And that goes for everyone. Yeah,
I think that's I think the problem with that is if you're way too into the label of what happened to you, you kind of can fall into the victim mentality.
You can fall into it, yes, and you play it up.
That's your whole world is, I'm the person that lost a son.
And how confusing is that?
Yeah.
So confusing.
Yeah, and it's it's not fair to your daughter. It's not fair to the people in your life, like, to have that be like the main part of your personality even.
Definitely.
It's just one tragic thing that happened that's always with you.
Totally.
But yeah, there's so much to your life.
Definitely. And that, honestly, that reminds me of one of my favorite Disney movies, Finding Nemo.
Mm-hmm.
Nemo loses his mom in the first 2 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
And then Finding Nemo takes you on this whole journey of life, right, through that. But would you have preferred an hour and a half of the movie be about him losing his mom?
Yeah.
No. There's so much more than just that.
Right. Yeah.
And you even look at his dad, right? And his dad, he lost 99% of his kids, lost his wife, and he has a son now, and he's living in total fear and is having a hard time letting his son experience life. And then he goes through that whole journey of learning how to let go and live again and all of that.
Yeah. So after going through something so harrowing, do you feel like you've unlocked this cavern of empathy within you? Do you feel like you empathize differently or better than you used to?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
I
And
would say
what a gift that is.
yes.
Yeah.
Totally. Definitely. And I would say, like, it's really easy too to spot people who have also
Been through a lot of pain.
been through pain.
Do you feel like you just almost have a sixth sense for it?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell like who is more self-aware, who's able to meet you on that level, and then who's more living, let's say, surface level a little bit.
Yeah, or just trying to kind of numb their life.
Definitely. And for me, like with what had happened, it just put everything into perspective. It's made everything way more important than it was before. And that's a whole gift. Like that is such a gift that.
Yeah. And that probably adds to this nuanced confusion of feeling like, am I actually in a weird way grateful for what happened?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it, in a lot of ways, has brought so much good into my life and so much gratitude and empathy and joy. But obviously, you wish it didn't happen. Obviously, it sucks that it happened. It's like the worst thing that's ever happened to you and hopefully ever will.
Yeah.
But still, maybe a small part of you feels like maybe this was even meant to happen. Maybe this was just part of the destiny of our lives.
Yeah. And honestly, a part of me does. And that doesn't take away from the guilt I feel about it.
Yeah.
My son, he drowned. And it was on my watch.
Yeah.
It happened within the first few minutes of us arriving to that pool that day. It was at a community pool. And honestly, I will always have so much guilt for that day.
Sure.
And I'm trying to educate more people on drowning. It's the leading cause of death for kids under 4. It takes under 30 seconds for your child to drown, and it's silent. Yeah. It's fast and it's silent. There was another kid in the hot tub with him who had no idea what was going on. So, yeah, I'm always going to feel guilt for that day. However, I do know and I do feel this deeper understanding. It's this deeper knowing that there's more to the story than a terrible accident.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so beautiful because you can put that into any aspect of your life now,
right.
You know, and realize that you don't need to be defined by one thing, whether it's, you know, a divorce or a horrible, horrible breakup or whatever. You can realize like, man, this can be a really hairy chapter of my life, but I can get past it. And even if it's always with me and there's always pain there's always guilt there, like I can find joy again and I can find happy again.
Yeah. Definitely, for sure. You have to allow yourself to do that.
Yeah.
Give yourself the freedom to do that.
Yeah. I love that. I hope people can understand that human emotions are so complicated.
Yes, it's not black and white.
And like, I remember feeling when I was going through a breakup, just feeling really almost foolish and silly that I was still heartbroken over someone.
Aww,
you know?
Yeah.
Just thinking like, okay, it's been long enough. Like I should be fully over this. But, you know, I had a buddy tell me like, dude, you'll feel better when you feel better.
Right. And maybe a part of you will always feel that, you know, to some degree or some level.
Yeah.
But you'll feel better too around that.
Yeah. But it was so comforting to feel like a close friend of mine didn't think I should be better by now.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
he was
Good for
he was
him.
just happy that I was there being open with him and sharing with him.
Uh-huh.
And it wasn't about like, come on, dude, like this was
Get over it already.
this was a year ago or
Yeah.
whatever. Like he was just like, no, like pain is pain,
Totally.
you know? And I
Oof,
think,
I got chills.
but you know, I think we shouldn't have to apologize for feeling anything,
Yeah.
you know?
Mhm.
And who even knows why we feel things sometimes? Like, I'm sure there are moments where the grief hits you
Mhm.
and you're like, I was not ready for that.
Oh.
I'm like trying to go about my day, do my
Oh,
things,
yeah,
you
totally.
know? But it just hits you.
Uh-huh.
And I'm sure every once in a while there's a temptation to almost be apologetic about it
Yeah.
because you're like, oh, I shouldn't like feel such a strong feeling in this moment for whatever reason.
Yeah, or not wanting it to take you out for that
Yeah.
day, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe you have something going on, or
Mhm.
for me, like I have my daughter.
Mhm.
So I want to be enjoying my daughter and fully present with her. And sometimes when something reminds me of whatever and one of those grief waves crashes over me, I'm taken out for a little bit.
Yeah,
And
totally.
I'm not as good of a mother as I could be. But honestly, that's okay. I have to let myself feel that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I don't know if you've thought about this. How old is your daughter right now?
She's a year.
A year. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is so cool, these podcasts you've done, because you can share these with your daughter and
Aw.
help, you know, I think that could help like share the story
Yeah.
for her because I mean it's gonna be hard to explain to her what happened.
Yeah.
And you're like, when do I do it? When she's 5? When she's
Right.
you know, at
Like,
what point
I
can she
lost
understand
a
it?
brother because we weren't being safe enough.
Right.
Like, that's going to be so hard.
Yeah. But yeah, I think these are really special time capsules where your daughter can see the pain in your eyes and she can
Yeah.
see like what Romeo meant to you and she can
Definitely.
see just all these
I
different
have
aspects.
I have a little journal
Mhm.
for her. It's like her baby journal
Yeah.
where I write diary entries to her all the time, and I've
Mhm.
kind of been explaining what's been going on with what happened with her brother and then her and where I'm at mentally and what happened with my separation with her father
Yeah.
and all of that. So I think that's helping too.
Yeah, that's cool. Are you a big journaler?
I am.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What strength have you found in just writing things down?
What strength?
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean?
Just what do you get from do you feel like writing down your
Oh.
experiences and feelings gives you strength?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I feel like writing is such a powerful tool that everybody has access to. And for me, it helps me get my emotions out. It helps me organize my brain and organize my feelings. And if I can write it out, I know I felt it and then I don't have to think about it anymore. So
Yeah,
writing is powerful.
Yeah, so I'm a writer.
Oh, really?
I've written a few books.
Oh, yes, I remember that. Yeah, 3 books.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I can't believe the power of writing out your feelings as far as discovering what your feelings actually are. Because I think sometimes in your brain you think you have kind of a grip on what you feel about something.
Yeah.
And then you start writing it out and you're like, I actually don't believe that, what I thought I believed, or I
Yeah.
don't even really feel that I feel this.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of, like you said, it organizes your thoughts
Definitely.
in a unique way.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
bet you're able to get in the zone easily through writing,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah, I remember one time I was journaling, and like sometimes when I'm journaling, like I'll get in the zone and I'll journal for 3 hours, you know. But I remember writing. I was trying to make sense of a breakup.
Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to see, is there some patterns in my past relationships? Like, why do I keep ending up here?
Yeah.
And I started like looking back at all my exes, and I was like, I want to try to figure out like why I like certain girls and why I fall for certain girls, right?
Okay.
And I couldn't believe, like, after writing for a while, what I kind of discovered and what I kind of felt. And I think what I ultimately realized was that every girl that I had like tried to love and like wanted to love but couldn't quite get there,
Mm-hmm.
like I knew from the get-go. But I just tried and tried because
So you knew from the get-go she wasn't the one?
Mm-hmm.
And then you tried to force it,
Mm-hmm.
or, huh?
Yeah, just because I don't like the word force, but essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like I tried to make it work because she was a great girl,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And there wasn't anything really wrong with her.
Right.
It was just a connection issue or a compatibility issue.
Right.
But going back and journaling, I think helped me realize like I knew all along with all of these girls.
Wow, yeah.
But
So
I
that
but I
definitely
think
helped you kind of organize
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Huh. So what do you think about with that then? Do you feel like when you meet the one,
Mm-hmm.
you'll know? Is that even in your perspective real? Like the knowing?
Yeah. I think that's such a good question.
Right?
I think this goes back to what I feel like I discovered in my journal was that with we'll say the 3 girls that I've felt the most love for in my life,
Uh-huh.
I knew really quick. And
That they were special, or knew what?
yeah, knew that like I could probably be happy
This
with
could
this
be
person forever.
It.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like there was with all of them there was never an instance of me trying to talk myself into it,
Okay.
you know, trying to say like kind of weigh pros and cons.
Ooh.
And like
It was just natural.
yeah, it was just
Uh-huh.
like there wasn't all this self like analyzing. It was I want to see this person tomorrow if possible.
Aww.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean.
And so I don't think it's necessarily like when you know, like love at first sight.
Right.
But I think once you get past the initial, like, we're both interested in each other,
Yeah.
we're talking, we're hanging out, we're kissing, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
like, I feel like I've known pretty quick.
Aww.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean it'll work out or that it's right,
Mm-hmm.
but just that it has maybe that powerful
That
possibility.
potential.
Yeah.
For sure. And I think that's something too is, I mean, personally, I don't necessarily think there is just one person
Yeah,
for
yeah.
everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'm wrong with some people's cases,
Yeah.
right? But I feel like there's multiple in your
Mm-hmm.
lifetime that
Yeah.
you could meet or that
Mm-hmm.
you date or whatever it is
Yeah.
that you could have an extraordinary
Yeah.
life with. And honestly, I stopped believing in extraordinary love
Yeah.
for a while.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was real.
Mm-hmm.
I would look around at relationships in my life that I knew of or what other people had, and I didn't know if true love was real.
Yeah.
And I think because in the relationship I was in, like I loved him,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So me leaving him and taking the leap for true love was
Mhm.
my first step into believing in that.
Yeah.
And I do today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Completely.
Let me ask you a hard question. You look at all the people in your life.
Yeah.
How many relationships would you say you could point at and say they have amazing, extraordinary love?
Aww. I mean, there's going to be people listening, right?
You're like, all of them.
All of them.
Yeah.
There's definitely lots that I see so much potential.
Yeah.
Like, oof, they're good for each other and they're young and they're figuring it out. And I'm so happy they're together.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
But like, honestly, there's one relationship that I can think of that
Immediately goes
they've
to your
been
mind.
together
Mhm.
for 40 years or so, and they are each other's one, and they love each other, and they're healthy, and they love being around each other. And I'm like, holy cow, it's real.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's real.
It's crazy how sometimes all you need is one, like.
It was. I'm like, okay, that's
Yeah.
all I needed to know. I will never settle for less now.
Yeah.
I want that.
Yeah. And I think when people talk about settling, like people get wrapped up in like, oh, they're settling with somebody that's like not as attractive as them or not as successful as them. But I think where you really can't settle is that the intangibles of like you're always having fun together. You're always laughing. You're
Yeah.
always,
What's better than that?
yeah, you're always growing and creating together.
Mhm.
And yeah, you see it. I think especially you look at old couples, you can see they kind of have it or they don't,
Yes.
you know, because they're either kind of ornery and sick of each other or they're just still just kind
they
of,
just still love each
they're
other.
just
and wanna be
delighted.
around each other all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say there's so much more, like you said, to money and to status and all of that. Like, I know this is a big thing with men is they feel worthiness issues.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they're dating a girl who really likes them, but they don't feel worthy enough for this girl,
Yeah.
they kind of let that relationship go.
Yeah.
When that's not, like, money and all of that never even mattered to her. She just loved him.
Yeah.
And she saw the potential in that. So I think that's a huge message to guys is to, know that you're worth it. And if that girl you really likes you, like, come on.
Yeah. And I think in the early stages, that's when you figure out, okay, is my job, is my ability to provide, is this an issue for her?
Right.
And if
sure.
and if it is, maybe I need to be with somebody else.
For sure. You're
right?
totally right. I'm glad that you're bringing that up.
But once you get past that, like,
and that's a conversation worth to be had.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
I think you have to have that. And because I've literally been on dates where girls have told me they don't think I make enough money for them.
Oh, wow.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay,
thanks for letting me know right now.
yeah, we'll see you later.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna like lie to you about my income.
Yeah, well, totally.
You
And
know?
I mean, everybody has different priorities.
Sure.
And so money's important, but I would say it is really hard for men today. They feel a lot of pressure
Yeah.
to provide and pressure and everything.
Yeah. I think for me, why that's like, and I don't have any fear in my ability to provide for a girl,
Mhm.
but I think what I don't want as a man is I don't want a girl to like me because of my ability to provide for her, because to me that has nothing to do with my personality and what I like. Sure, it has to do with what I can offer as a husband or father.
Right.
But as far as like me as an individual, I feel like that's like 1% of me. And so if a girl is overly obsessed with that part of me, I'm like, what about the other 99%?
Definitely. Definitely. And I mean, I would say there is something to females definitely seek out feeling safe and they want a provider.
Yeah.
So if you can help her feel safe in whatever capacity, right, then that will help her be able to open up more and all of that. So there's a point to that too.
Yeah. Is there a part of you that you feel like in the past maybe guys have focused on this part of your personality or your life or what you offer and you're like, yeah, that's great, but like I'm more interested in this part of me?
I mean, with girls, it's very much guys are more focused on looks.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that.
Has that been, what does that feel like as a girl? Is that like still somewhat flattering, but you're like, oh, it's almost boring? Like, I get it. You think I'm attractive, but big deal. Like, let's move on. Like,
no, I personally, like, I love it.
Yeah.
I want my guy to know I'm hot.
Yeah.
But there's more than that.
Right.
And I want him to make me feel like I'm hot, even when I'm not feeling it.
Yeah.
But like, there's so much more than that. That's just the surface level. You've got to go deeper than that.
Right. Yeah.
So if I'm dating somebody and I can tell like that's all he's into, I can sniff that out in 2 seconds. Right. So
how do you sniff it out?
I mean, you can tell even when the guy like approaches you, like he's only into the way you look. You can totally tell.
Yeah.
So
rascals. How important to you is friendship?
Friendship? I would say friendship's very important. Yeah.
Do you has it been something that you've had to like lean on through the stuff you've gone through? Your friendships?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I have this one friend, her name's Maddie, and she has been an absolute angel for me. And I really, truly feel that my son, Romeo, I know I'm co-creating my life today with my son.
Mm-hmm.
He's bringing in these circumstances, these people, these situations, and he helped bring Maddie to me. We were already friends,
Yeah.
but he definitely helped coordinate a situation where she like totally was able to bring me into her home,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Completely took me in with open arms. I don't think I would have left my relationship if I didn't have somewhere that stable to go.
Okay. Yeah.
So it was a huge transitionary point for me in my life. And this relationship with her has been incredible for me to be able to have somebody that I can lean on and is there for me. And I mean, she hasn't been charging me rent.
Yeah.
And
That's awesome.
yeah, so for sure that friendship she's family to me.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's amazing.
Yeah. How about
Yeah.
you? I know that you have friends that you're
Yeah.
very close to, and it sounds like you guys get together and talk about life all the time
Yeah,
and
yeah.
have a group chat where you're constantly talking to each other about.
It's funny. My birthday was a few days ago, and
Oh,
I
happy
had,
birthday!
thank you. And I had this big I do this every year. I just basically invite anyone I'm close to at the time to dinner, and but I also my parents are often there, and it's just kind of a hodgepodge, right?
Uh-huh.
And I usually end up later that night just feeling overwhelmed with gratitude for all the people in my life.
Good.
And I remember thinking the other night, I even made a dumb little TikTok about it, but I remember thinking man, of all these friendships I have, if I even had one of these, I would be one of the luckiest people alive. But I have dozens of them.
That's
and I
so
don't
good.
and I don't even know, I almost view it as luck. I don't know what I did to deserve it or earn it, but I've just had these people placed in my life, and I know my life is infinitely better because of them.
Yeah.
And I'm just, sometimes I'm just in awe. I'm just man, I have so many people I could run to and they'd be there for me. And if I just had one of those, I would be one of the luckiest people alive. But
That's so incredible. And
yeah.
especially think about all those people today who have a really hard time making friends. Yeah. I mean, adults have a hard time making friends. Yeah. So what would you say to them, or what kind of advice would you give them?
People that are struggling to make friendships.
Yeah, totally. Especially because your friendships are so deep. So even if people have friends, I feel like a lot of people are struggling with, okay, I have a group of friends, but we don't relate on deep levels. Yeah. We don't even know how to go there.
Yeah, it's funny. One of my friends that I've more recently gotten really close with, he's like my best friend's sister's husband, so my best friend's brother-in-law.
Okay.
And he's quite a bit younger than me. And we started hanging out, and we just kind of realized, hey, this kid's actually really cool.
Oh, right? Yeah, I'm vibing with this kid.
Yeah. So we love spending time with him, and he's kind of opened up to us, and he's like, man, I like hanging out with you older guys because you guys just talk about everything. Oh. And he's like, and my friends, we've just struggled to go deep. Yeah. And we struggle to be vulnerable. And he's like, it's just so easy with you guys because I see you guys being super vulnerable, so I don't feel weird bringing up something that I'm maybe feeling vulnerable talking about. And so for me, it's if you want some more vulnerability in your relationships, as you start to do it, people will open up, right? Because they'll see it just breaks the ice. If you're the one that just leads in and says hey, I've just been depressed lately and I'm going through this and I'm feeling this, almost everyone's gonna be oh wow, and then they're gonna feel that safety to open up themselves, right?
Definitely. So it opens up that door.
Yeah. And I think a lot of guys in their friend culture, their culture is to make fun of each other, right? And just give each other hell for sure everything. And there's definitely some of that with our friend group, yeah. But mostly the culture we've fostered in our friend group is to build each other up and to compliment each other and to hype each other up and to be there for the other when somebody needs something. And so I think the way to find good friends is to be a good friend.
Yeah, that's really good advice.
And And to also look around and realize like this isn't a unique feeling like loneliness.
Yeah.
Like everyone struggles with it at different times of their life. And so go find other people that are lonely.
Right.
You know, like
That's very
there's
true.
no lack of people that are lonely. You know, so
and you're gonna have to put yourself out
yeah.
there.
So if you're
It's gonna be
struggling
scary.
with making connections, go make one.
Yeah.
You know, don't just wait for a connection to come to you.
Yeah.
Be proactive about it.
Yeah. And be vulnerable. So
Yeah.
when somebody asks you, how are you doing?
Mhm.
Don't just brush them off. Oh, I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, like, it could happen in the smallest, most simple way. Like, and I think the easiest way to make friendships is in little communities, right? Whether it's you go to the gym every week,
Yeah.
or you play tennis,
Right.
whatever.
You have to place yourself in those kind of
You're
situations.
around people, and then when somebody is like, "Hey, man, like, can you help me with this lift or whatever?" Then you can start to open up a little bit, and it's crazy how I think some people get nervous about opening up to strangers.
Definitely.
But I think as you do, you realize like people are usually down to like talk and down to hear your stuff.
And I would say too, it's an energy thing to walk around being more open. Like people can tell when you seem approachable and when you seem closed off.
Yeah.
And that's honestly huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of my like perpetual goals I have, is to be someone that is not closed off, right? To be somebody that is approachable, and even when I'm having bad days, you know, because I want people to come to me and feel like I'm somebody they can always talk to. But yeah, sometimes you're in your head and you're walking around not very approachable.
For sure. And then you're wondering, why can't I make friends? Why does nobody even look at me?
Yeah.
Start making eye contact with people.
You're a grumpy goose.
Yeah. Maybe you have bitch face going on.
Right,
like, check yourself.
Oh, yeah, maybe I have it. I've heard you talk a lot about, in some of your other podcasts you've been on, the power of dreams.
Okay,
and
yeah.
I feel like you've had really, I don't know if you've had your whole life, but maybe since the accident especially, you've had really vivid, lucid at times dreams. What's been kind of your relationship with those?
Yeah, so I've had very, very vivid dreams of my son and him coming to me and honestly giving me messages and talking to me.
Wow.
And I feel so grateful for, I'm going to call it a gift.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us have this gift, and in certain ways or others. For me, it started off, I would practice it. Maybe I would be dreaming something and I would realize all of a sudden I'm in a dream. Okay, there you go. You know you're in a dream. Now pay attention to your surroundings in the dream.
Yeah.
What do you notice? And then you're going to notice that this dream feels a lot more real than you thought dreams felt. Yeah. And then you're going to notice, okay, this dream feels really real. So if this feels so real, what is real life? It really gets really cool, honestly.
Yeah.
But you notice that you're dreaming, you start practicing that, you practice your surroundings, and then you start practicing calling people in. Changing the dream. And I've practiced calling in my son in my dreams.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So how often would you say you're able to lucid dream that much?
Maybe once a month.
Really?
Yeah. I'm not successful once a month at getting him in the dreams. And it can be confusing where maybe I'll have a dream about Romeo and I'm lucid in it and I know I'm dreaming, but I'm not sure. Am I conjuring up memories of him that I'm seeing, or is this actually him? So you have to kind of practice understanding the difference of both, because I've had both.
Yeah.
So
is there anything you do to, because I've heard that the best way to like get better at lucid dreaming is to journal about it. Yeah. And to do that like the second you wake up.
Totally.
Too.
You're going to wake up and you're going to feel so peaceful, and you're going to feel like, oh, I'll remember that in the morning.
Yeah.
You probably won't remember that in the morning.
Especially if you like fall back to sleep for 10 minutes.
Definitely. Yeah. So definitely you need to get up. It's going to be really hard to get up because you're going to feel so at peace. And the reason you're feeling so at peace is because you were just, I mean, if you're able to receive something like that in the dreamland, you have to be completely at an energetic level where you can. So you're going to be very, very peaceful.
Yeah.
You're going to be vibrating very high.
Mm-hmm.
So when you wake up and you're vibrating so high, you're like, oh, everything's good. I'll remember it tomorrow. You won't.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely get up, go write it down.
Yeah.
In the morning, I like to go through my dreams. Even if I didn't have an interesting dream or a dream about Romeo, I like to practice. Okay, what was last night's dream?
Yeah.
It's important. Let's remember it and then let it go.
Yeah, and I think it's a good thing to help you realize like what am I maybe fixating on? What am I obsessing over?
Yeah, you can use it in any kind of way.
What am I worrying about too much?
Mm-hmm. Your dreams can tell you so many things.
What do I need to worry about a little bit more maybe? You told me a little bit. I'd like to hear a little bit more about your wild ayahuasca trip.
Oh, yeah. So, for those of you who don't know, ayahuasca is a plant medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of how to describe it correctly, I probably won't go into too many details. But basically went to Colombia,
Mm-hmm.
and we partook of this plant medicine with this tribe.
Yeah.
And
so you have like a shaman, right?
We had a shaman.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a shaman.
What was the impetus for doing this? Did you it always sounded fun or interesting, or you've really felt compelled to do it?
I've felt drawn to plant medicine and psychedelics in my healing journey, and it's been incredibly helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And ayahuasca was something that I knew was, it's kind of like the grandmother of all psychedelics.
Right.
Like if you go to ayahuasca, like you're going in for it.
Yeah.
And so like I knew about it, and I've heard ayahuasca is something where it calls you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something where you're just like, I'm going to go do ayahuasca one day. No, it calls you. Yeah. And if you're feeling called to it and you accept the call, then you are on this journey the second you accept to do it. That was definitely the case with me.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, like I had known about it and I was interested in it because of what happened with me and the accident. And honestly, I wasn't looking at it as something that was just going to heal me. Yeah. But I felt like it was something that would help bring out my trauma or my emotions that I keep buried inside, and that's what I was wanting. So
kind of a way to detoxify yourself.
Yeah, like let's and bringing everything up to the surface. Mm-hmm. I think ayahuasca is a whole mind, body, soul cleanse. Oh yeah, all of it. So anyways, I knew about it, and then somebody actually listened to a podcast that I was on with Jimmy Rex, mm-hmm. and her name's Brittany. She's awesome. Reached out to me and paid for my trip.
Oh, wow.
So it was handed to me.
Yeah.
And I just felt like, okay, it's a sign.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going.
Yeah, usually when somebody pays for something, it's a good sign.
Yeah. I was like, all right, let's go. I'm going. And it was an amazing experience. I definitely, it's so funny because they say if a woman starts her period on this trip, mm-hmm. she's not able to partake.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they're very I don't know, they're very strict about that for whatever reason. And I hadn't had my period for 1.5 years because I had a baby. And mm-hmm. so, I mean, for those of you who know and those of you who don't, like having a baby and then breastfeeding and all of that can kind of stop your period. But anyway, so the ayahuasca had made it trigger. So I was only, I mean, TMI, I was only able to partake of the medicine one day.
Okay.
And I didn't necessarily have like all the healing benefits that I wanted to have or everything that I wanted to experience. But this goes back to like, I honestly went on the trip to have the healing experience with my son.
Yeah.
And I didn't have much experience with my son, but this goes back to relationships where honestly, in that first ceremony, I was brought down to the floor, and my emotions in what I was feeling with I was shown the feeling of who my future partner would feel like.
Oh, wow.
My husband.
Yeah.
And it brought me to the floor. This feeling of total commitment and total love.
So
And
you had a feeling of like you got a vibe for his personality or his aura or
no, I didn't know who it was.
Yeah.
It was just like, it was this feeling of total commitment to somebody who I loved so much.
Yeah.
And I kept asking, who is it? And they wouldn't show me.
Mm-hmm.
So that also helped me believe again
Yeah.
in true love and
now,
true commitment.
Now you'll see in a relationship, you'll be like, well, I know.
I'm looking for that
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
And I won't settle for anything less now that I know it's real.
Yeah. So what other, like, I feel like, and maybe you didn't have this full experience because you just did it one day, but I hear people talk about it like a lot of people have these crazy, like they feel like they encounter God and they like go deep into the universe and it's very like existential. Did you have any of that?
Mine was, I didn't go that deep with it.
Okay. Meaning you had kind of a lighter dose.
I had a lighter experience.
Yeah.
I don't think I took enough to go that deep, and maybe I wasn't ready to. And honestly, I feel like that was protection for me. Like it was protection that I had started my period and wasn't able to keep going, because I also realized from that trip I have a lot of grief and a lot of heaviness that I don't even have access to. And it's almost like my body and my brain is protecting me from that.
Yeah.
So I don't have access to that on my day-to-day, and I don't think I was ready to fully receive that yet.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to read to you my initial reaction, what I wrote down after reading this quote by Albert Camus. I said, I kept looking at this little excerpt from a letter between two friends and couldn't help but ache, in the good way, for that level of love and friendship. I love the idea of affection both being strong and light, and someone saying they love your happiness is so simple, but really means everything when you're talking about truly caring for another. So this letter, he wrote to a friend of his named René Char, who was a French poet. They're both writers. And I love the idea of this letter just between two men. Like,
I like that too.
For some reason it's so sweet. But he said, the older I get, the more I find that you can only live with beings who liberate you and who love you with an affection that is as light to bear as it is strong to feel. This is how I am, your friend. I love your happiness, your freedom, your adventure, and I would like to be for you the companion you are sure of always. Yeah, so what are your thoughts on that? I personally just love this idea that you can love somebody with an affection that is as light to bear as it is strong to feel. And then I love him saying, I love your happiness.
Right. Yeah. As light to bear and strong to feel. Can you go into that? Like, what do you feel with that?
Yeah, like I want my affection to be so easy to bear. I don't want it to be a burden. I don't want it to come with like extra parts that make it difficult to deal with. I want it to be light to bear. I want it to be easy, but I also want it to be strong, and I want it to be felt. You want your love
to be easy, but also to be strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
So that actually reminds me of a question I had for you.
Mm-hmm.
I saw in one of your earlier podcasts, you were talking about one of your main trials is you not having found your person yet. And maybe you look around at everybody else in your age group, right? Who most of them are with somebody, whether it is their person or not. People have, chosen people. Where are you now with your process with that?
That was like a couple months ago.
Oh, really? How do you handle that mentally?
Yeah. I think it's, like we've talked about a bunch on this episode, I think it's not black and white, right?
Yeah.
Like some days it's really hard and it's on my mind a lot, and some days I'm really at peace and I'm like, it'll happen when it happens,
Right.
and whatever. But ultimately, I think if you want to like put an average on it, like an average feeling
Right.
that
It's
I
hard to do
feel,
that.
I think I think it's just my greatest desire,
Yeah.
right? And so, but I want to be able to find peace in life, even if I don't get the things that I want,
Mm.
right? Like I have
Mm-hmm.
these great desires, and I think they're righteous desires. I think they're
Mm-hmm.
beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
like altruistic desires. But I want to be able to find peace if they don't come to fruition.
Totally.
And I think that's a hard pill to swallow,
Yep.
right? And I ultimately do think that I'll get them still,
Yes.
right?
But you can't only be happy if you get this
Yeah, I
thing,
can't
because
put
then you're holding it away from you.
I can't put all of my happiness into one thing
No.
happening in the future.
And then when you get that thing in the future, you're still not going to be happy because you're going to be so freaked out if it ever
Yeah,
disappears.
right. And like, let's say, heaven forbid, I meet the love of my life, we get married, everything is fairy tale, and then she passes away,
Yeah.
right? Something horrible happens. She gets in a
Right.
car accident. She gets cancer. Like, obviously, I'll be devastated. But is that the only way I can be happy? Is if I have everything happen the way I want it to,
No.
right? I'm sure, like, if you could kind of rewind your life, and someone was like, "Yeah, you're gonna have a son, but like, he's gonna tragically pass away."
Oof. Yeah.
Like, they would probably kill you, and you'd be like, well, I guess I'll never be happy.
Yeah.
I guess I'll be devastated my whole
Why
life.
even enjoy him at all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now with the hindsight, you see that was part of your journey in becoming the human you are today.
Definitely. And I still want to have kids.
Yeah.
Even with having that happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is beautiful.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think ultimately it's beautiful and it's important to have really
Strong desires.
Yeah. But I think it's okay to be like, you know what? If I don't get everything I've ever wanted, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
You know?
You're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And it's okay too to kind of give that to the higher power.
Yeah.
Right? And understand, like, okay, God, I'm going to give this one to you and I'm going to do my part. But I also realize I can't control this.
Yeah.
I'm doing everything I can, but I can't control it all.
Yeah. Yeah. It's surrendering it and giving it to God or whoever you believe in.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that makes it so like I can just live my life and I'm going to control the controllables.
It takes off the pressure.
Yeah.
So much of the pressure is taken off, and I'm sure it'll be a lot easier for that love to find you or whatever it is that person's wanting to have if the pressure's gone.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, I mean, this is kind of a personal story, but
Right.
A few months ago, I had an experience where I was just praying about this and, this desire and this kind of pain in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt such a strong feeling that, like, this feeling like I got you. Like, you don't need to worry.
Yes.
Like,
trust my timing over yours.
And the cool thing that I felt was, I think sometimes I've worried, like, well, maybe I've set my bar too high, maybe what I want is a fairy tale. It's a pipe dream, right? But the message I received from God that I felt in my bones was, hey, I actually have something for you even better than you could imagine. And so you don't need to worry about that.
Yeah.
And
I would say it's not so much be patient for this. It's enjoy the knowing that this will come.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Because that's a cool way to spin patience, right?
For sure.
Is to just, find joy in the waiting.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay, just a couple more questions. I wanted to ask if you could go back, when did this all happen? You were like 20?
I was 24.
You're 24.
I was 21 when I got pregnant.
Oh, right.
And then 24 when I lost him.
Okay, so if you could go back to, like, let's say 19-year-old you and just, like, without foreshadowing and telling her all the stuff you're going to go through, if you could just give her a little pep talk and say like,
oh my gosh,
and say,
girl.
right, say, okay, buckle up.
Okay.
But what would you say to her, like, and maybe you would just hold her hand and cry with her. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing to really say.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I would want to tell her, hey, you're going to go through some hard stuff. And don't forget that all of it is for you. The hard things that you go through are for you, and there's a meaning for all of it. And you're not alone. And there's so much more to life and to all of this than you can ever comprehend.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I love, one thing I wanted to say that I've loved you've done throughout the whole episode is you talk about Romeo as this person that is always with you.
Yeah.
And
yes.
as, to me, it feels like this constant angel at your side that's there to help you, there to comfort you, there to be with you, there to play with you, just all of these things. And I think it's so beautiful. And I think sometimes when people pass away, people just are so scared to talk about them and to bring them up because it causes them pain. But I love that you talk about him as if he's just in the room.
He is most of the time.
Yeah. That's so cool.
He's definitely a part. I mean, he's a huge part of my life. Like I said, I truly feel that I'm co-creating my life with my son, with my angel. And it's like, I would give anything to have him back physically, but it also hurts knowing if I were to have him back physically, I would lose him as my angel. That's how much of a relationship I have with him today. And that's something that I really want everybody who's going through loss to try, if they haven't already, to play around with and practice that.
Yeah. Okay, last thing. What is, somebody that is going through an immense, like, horrific heartbreak, whether it's a loss of a life, a breakup, finding out their spouse is terminally ill. When you're right in the thick of that pain, what is your advice for someone that is just so in it that like there's just a hopelessness and there's a despair,
like they've lost the light?
Yeah. What do you say to somebody that you've already been through that hell? And I'm sure maybe you've encountered this since, you've met people that are in hell and you're like, yo, I've been there.
Don't forget sight of the light. Like, the light is there, although you can't see it right now. It's there. And don't forget that. Like, you can find it.
Yeah.
So don't lose hope.
Yeah, that's great. Well, BrieOcea, thank you so much for coming on.
I love this podcast.
Yeah, good.
It was probably one of my favorite ones.
Good. I really appreciate it. I just love your energy and your attitude towards things. And I think it's beautiful for people to see the different sides of someone who's gone through pain.
Yeah.
And to realize that, sometimes it's grief, sometimes it's joy, sometimes it's pain, sometimes it's stress. Like, all these emotions come at you just because you're a human,
Definitely.
And sometimes you'll be overwhelmed by one and sometimes you'll be overwhelmed by another. But I don't think anyone should be, like we've talked about, should be defined by one specific emotion.
Yeah. Or to be defined by what's happened to them. Yeah. There's so much more to life than that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you're awesome.
Oh, you're awesome. Thank you. I loved it.
Yeah, no problem. And we'll see you next week.
Cool.